Okay, so finally, the first Boruto chapter with 110% all new content has been released. Chapter 11. And, you read the chapter, and it's not the most mind-blowing chapter or anything. I feel as though there was quite a bit to talk about in there. But, there was still some substance in there. It wasn't just completely, absolutely bland. But I noticed that the outcry right now, and people are just freaking out about this, and I feel as though it's not really a new thing, I guess, because one, the character wasn't really focused on that much up until this point, because, in the Boruto Naruto the movie stuff, especially in the later chapters, she's kind of not really involved, and two, a lot of people are just now getting into the Boruto manga, because it's all new content, and people are excited now, but people are flipping shits about Sarada's character design, Sasuke and Sakura's daughter, what she looks like now compared to what she looked like in the movie and stuff like that. Because in the movie, it was pretty standard gear and it looks, like, okay, she's a ninja, it suits her or whatever. But in the manga, they stepped up and cranked up the sex appeal to an unbound max. And I'm like, but she's like 12 years old. Honestly, when I first read it, I really didn't think nothing of it because I was just like, oh, that's Sarada. I didn't even really pay attention. I mean, my personal critique, the two things I would say really is, one, why are you in high heels? Like, it worked with Tsunade because she's like a 50-year-old woman. If anything, it was kind of cool. Like, yo, she's giving them a little bit of an edge. Like, yeah, I'm not walking on some regular old shoes, so you might get a little bit of an edge. I mean, it worked with Tsunade. That's a grown-ass woman, but yeah, with Sarada wearing the heels, I'm like, that's not proper ninja attire. And maybe I'd argue, okay, the skirt is a little bit too short, but people are taking it to another level. I'm not gonna lie. I saw some of the comments and some people just going absolutely batshit crazy, saying they're making Sarada into a slut. She looks like a whore. I would never, I don't even know, like, let's stop right there too, because we live in a day and age where girls younger and younger are dressing very provocative, okay? This isn't like 1998 or some shit. Like, that's pretty much very close to what a 12-year-old, not all, obviously I'm not saying all, but a lot of kids nowadays dress similar to that. And it's like, yeah, you might not agree with it, I might not agree with it, but that's just what it is. But personally, when I first saw it again, I really didn't think too much of it. It's not a problem to me. I think maybe the high heels could go and she'd get some regular old like boots or something, but aside from that, it's not really bothering me. But people are freaking the fuck out and just like slamming the shit out of the new design for Sarada Uchiha, and I'm like, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, but let's get into the meat of the chapter. Obviously starts off, there's a new mission, and this chapter felt very reminiscent to early Naruto because, okay, we had the big battle, and they're trying to go now, okay, we finished that. The Momoshiki stuff is done. There is some remnants of that, and we'll talk about that in a second, but for the most part, I felt as though it was really just trying to build up the new stuff and where we're going and having a couple missions showcasing that it's not always a doom and gloom day in the world of Naruto. There's just some simple missions or maybe a couple of little baddies here. And every time I see any type of evil force or any misdeeds in the Naruto world, and obviously there's going to have to be some sort of misdeeds and bad people, just because if not, what type of story we would have, it always makes me think like, damn, in a way, even to this day, Naruto accomplishing becoming Hokage, he really couldn't bring absolute peace to the world where nobody's doing anything bad. I mean, I guess you could argue that in the distant future, because of what Naruto set forth, it could happen, in the distant future, but it always makes me feel a little bit odd when I see that. I'm like, oh, so yeah, there's still crime, quite a bit of it actually, like, okay. One of my most interesting bits from the chapter that I really was like, man, I can't wait till they start expanding on this more, is the little conversation Boruto had with Sasuke. For starters, we found out, one, that Sasuke was aware of what happened when Momoshiki, froze time or whatever. He even said it wasn't just like, some weird paralyzing thing. It was almost as if Momoshiki froze actual time and he was watching with his Rinnegan. He was the only one, aside from Boruto and Momoshiki, that was aware of what was going on, which I'm kind of like, okay, so does Naruto know now? If not, why haven't they told him? I mean, one, he's a incredible shinobi. Two, that's Boruto's father. You should probably put him on the loop. But the interesting thing out of all of it was when Sasuke said, yo, dog, I'm not trying to scare you, but what's happening to your body is not normal. And even Sasuke doesn't really understand what it is, and he's looking into it. So that's really good setup for the future for this little thing. Now, obviously, the seal on his hand or whatever. Now, obviously, it's going to more than likely lead to what we saw in the very first chapter of Boruto, the time skip where Boruto's older and he's fighting against that Kawaki guy. I'm imagining that that's that seal thing, and I don't know how the Kawaki guy is gonna get it. Maybe he'll have some influence, because I'm really curious, when the fuck is Kawaki going to be introduced into the manga? We're 11 chapters in. I think there was one panel somebody showed me of a character that looked like Kawaki from the back. I mean, it really looked, the shaved side of the head with the two-toned hair and same clothes or whatever, that was standing in one panel. But aside from that, we haven't seen him in this timeline yet, and that could very well not even be Kawaki. Maybe he just hasn't been shown yet at all. So I'm really curious when the fuck we're actually going to see him, because if you want to make it so that him and Boruto have some sort of, relationship or just some roots to where it all began, you need to introduce him early on, so that way we could build that relationship and whatever, if they have a bond at some given point or a hatred, instead of just having him clash down or whatever. Because it seems as though, again, in the Boruto chapter 1, when we actually see them, that they've actually known each other for a while. So I'm kind of curious, like, what's going to happen? Are we not going to see Kawaki for a long time? Because now we're in fresh content. Be perfect time to slowly introduce him, but he wasn't in the chapter. But again, I kind of deviated from my whole point, is that the seal thing on his hand, I'm imagining, again, has something to do with the markings that we've seen Boruto have in the actual first chapter, in the first few pages, before we jumped into the flashback of where we are now. And then we had some, kind of scrubby villains in here. They were shape-shifting yokai, and pretty much they got bodied by some like 10 and 12-year-olds, which I kind of liked, in a way that even though they're doing missions like this on their own, their sensei is still watching, because you see at the end of their little excursion that they had, that Konohamaru was in the trees, which, by the way, I ain't gonna lie, I did not recognize Konohamaru. It wasn't until somebody said his name, I think, or something, that I was like, oh, so that was actually Konohamaru. Like, when the fuck did Konohamaru start rocking the afro, boy? Like, yo, I kind of got something similar going on right now. Maybe I could be Konohamaru. Like, yo, what the fuck are they doing? Like, some of the character designs are still kind of wonky. It doesn't look identical to Kishimoto. I mean, there are points where it looks really close, but yeah, you can still see that this guy is still doing his own thing with certain characters. And I guess he could get away with it with Konohamaru, because at the end of the day, he's not that big of a character, and not that many people are going to give a fuck about him anyways. But nevertheless, I was confused. I was like, who the fuck? Oh, that's Konohamaru. But yeah, nevertheless, it was good that he was still kind of being a decent sensei and watching over them as they're doing some mission, because these guys are some deadly dudes. If they, got a hold of one of them, they could have really killed him. Which, by the way, I seen another argument, which I need to dispel right now. People were saying, when Sarada got cornered by that dude, why the hell didn't she just use the Sharingan? And I think it's fairly simple. If you read the following few pages after Boruto bodied that motherfucker, that was all a part of her plan. She was going to be looking scared, and then eventually when Boruto jumped in, they were going to follow this guy so they could find his hideout and find, his boss. So that's why she didn't do it. She was playing into it. I'm pretty sure, because she has the Sharingan. I'm pretty sure he wasn't that big of a deal to her. And if I'm not mistaken, Sarada is pretty much stronger than Boruto. So for Boruto to come in and, really do some damage and shit like that to that dude, I'm pretty sure Sarada could have done it as well. And then we see throughout the chapter that Boruto, he had good development in the movie portions, and right now it's not going back to that same spoiled nonsense shit, but he is very, very similar to Naruto still. Like, when they're saying, yo, you were supposed to play as, just a side guy, you wasn't supposed to do all that, and he's like, yeah, I heard you, kind of went through one ear and out the other. It's like, that's classic Naruto, where he would just like jump in and not give a shit about what anybody says and start brawling and stuff like that, even though you're supposed to be, very strategic. You're a ninja. You're supposed to be, using strategy and stealth. But yeah, in that regard, he's very, very similar to his father. And Kishimoto said it in an interview not that long ago, that a lot of these characters, you have no choice but to make them somewhat similar clones, even to a certain degree, as their parents. And right now, Boruto still is kind of in that realm of being like OG Naruto, where he's hard-headed, he just wants to jump in and fuck people up. So yeah, something interesting that they tied into the movie, and I'm sure when they made the movie and they thought about it, it wasn't really a thought in their mind until after the fact. That ninja tech guy, because I know a lot of people are probably like a little hazy, you haven't seen Naruto the movie in a while, but the ninja tech guy that ultimately actually helped Boruto to cheat, where, you know, he was in the exam or whatever, and he got caught cheating. He was actually under hypnosis, or basically under control from somebody else, which again, when they made the movie, I highly doubt that. He was just a piece of shit in general, but apparently somebody else was trolling him, and there was something, it was very subtle, but I like seeing it nonetheless, when Naruto was like, do you think there's a possibility maybe, you know, Boruto was under control as well, and maybe that's why he cheated on the test? It's like, he still to this day wants to believe that his son wasn't that big of a scumbag to cheat. It's like, maybe my son isn't that big of a scumbag. Like, I like that. That's the father inside of him wanting to believe the best in his son, because Naruto, I mean, I think Naruto to a certain degree was kind of like that in his younger days, not to the degree of like cheating, but like, for example, I remember in the tuning exams when they had to do that scroll, he was really close to opening up the scroll. Remember, he wasn't supposed to open it up, just so that, I forget exactly what were the details. It's been a while since I've seen that content, but like, that's kind of similar in a way. So, you know, he gets it from you, bruh. It's funny how they continuously from time to time try to make Asuma's daughter Mirai kind of relevant. It's like, hey, I'm reporting for duty, and like, you see Shikamaru has completely taken the role as Asuma. He's even smoking the cigarettes and shit. I'm like, yeah, you learned from a great, and you're a great, you know, you're one of the best characters in Naruto, so go ahead, bro, and enjoy your smokes, like, just do your thing. But it's interesting that they're trying to make her relevant, and I think she'll have a decent role if something happens where Shikamaru or, you know, those particular characters are, like, in trouble or something. I think they will push her, because she should be quite a bit older than, at the very least, the Boruto people, you know, because they're kind of young. She should be, I want to say, if Boruto was born maybe, what, like 5 or 6 years after the original or Shippuden, then she's probably like around like 5 or 6 years older than them or something like that. So she's probably, you know, maybe 17 or 18 or something like that, and they're like 12 and that age, because people are saying like Sarada 6 or 10. No, I'm pretty sure they should be around the same age Naruto was if they, you know, graduated from the Ninja Academy. They're probably like 12. And then they're trying to hype up this corpse clone Shojoji. He's one of the top of the bingo book, which again, the fact that they still have the bingo book means that there's quite a bit of criminals still roaming around in the Narutoverse, which goes along with what I was talking about earlier in this video, that yeah, crime hasn't completely evaporated in the Narutoverse. I mean, it's probably at an all-time low. You don't have thugs like the Akatsuki running around anymore, but this dude, based on what he can do, he can mimic people's voices and face, which it really wasn't all that impressive to me, because when they were saying like he can even from the memory of people that he's killed make, you know, turn into them essentially, and I'm like, that's just a shadow clone. What the fuck? Like, we've seen that a million times in Naruto. Like, maybe he can completely replicate their chakra to the point where you won't be able to tell. So maybe that's it. But yeah, it didn't really seem all that impressive. And honestly, I'm sure 99.9% that with barely any effort, Naruto or Sasuke could body this motherfucker. So it's like, yeah, you'll be a cool threat for Boruto and them, but in reality, you're not a threat to the Leaf. And then towards the end of the chapter, I honestly felt like it was a very big promotion for either Naruto card games in general or a new Naruto card game that they're trying to launch, because when you got Boruto opening up the packs, you got that little rich kid Tento opening up the packs trying to get the cards, I'm like, if that is not the biggest promotion I've ever fucking seen in a manga, I don't know what is. It's like, even had the SSR, I'm like, yo, are these Dokkan Naruto cards? Like, what are you doing right now? It totally felt like straight up them just trying to promote this, and we're gonna see either a new Naruto card game or one of the existing ones, because I don't really follow it like that. They're trying to push it heavy, because I was like, I mean, it makes sense. At first, I thought it was really, really ridiculous and silly, but if you think about it in this regard, like, in the real world, we have NFL cards, we have baseball cards of real living people. So it's the same thing with Legendary Shinobi. I'm sure there's like an Asuma card, and I'm putting all my chips on it that the card Boruto wants is like a Legendary Sasuke card. Maybe it's like Sasuke from the Shippuden era, or maybe it's Sasuke as he is now. I don't think as he is now is that big of a deal, because like you could see him in the real. So maybe it's like at his, you know, crazy prime, although you would even argue if he's at his prime now or not. But, you know, back in anyway, towards the Madara era, maybe that's the type of look they're going for with that card, and I'm willing to bet that that's what Boruto's trying to get, because that's his idol, that's the dude he looks up to, that's the shinobi he wants to be like, so why wouldn't he want to get the card from him? And then speaking of that Tento kid, it screams to me that he's the Konohamaru to Boruto. Right now, you know, he's a spoiled little shit, but his dad don't pay him no mind, and Boruto right now doesn't like him. They're gonna eventually bond, and he'll be like the Konohamaru to him, and I don't know if he'll become a shinobi at some given point, but I see that being the relationship that is formed based on Boruto being his bodyguard, and so on and so forth. Overall, overall the chapter, which I can't believe I talked quite a bit because again, it wasn't the most smashing, action-packed, or not even just action-packed progression. We had a couple of bits here or there. I think some of the most important things was, addressing the seal on his hand, that it's not normal. Sasuke don't even know what the fuck that is, like what's going on there. That was one of the big key points. And then a couple other things like that, body snatching clone motherfucker or whatever, like, okay, a decent setup there. So it was a decent setup chapter. I want to say maybe like a 6.5 at most. It wasn't incredible. I think the most exciting thing is just, hey, new Naruto content, hell yeah. But in reality, it was like, yo, we're looking at them opening up trading card packs. It's like, what's going on here? And I guess I gotta ask one of the biggest questions since everybody is talking about it. Does Sarada's character design and the clothing she's wearing right now really upset you and bother you? Do you feel like just screaming out, hey, you're a fucking slut? Or do you not really give a shit? Personally, it doesn't really bother me other than the fact that it's not that logical for a 12-year-old girl to be, well, 12-year-old girl shouldn't be wearing high heels, but also to be a ninja wearing high heels. It's like, what's going on with that? But yeah, it's like, why are you looking at Sarada like that to begin with? I'm just saying, but kind of curious, everyone's opinions, people have different perspectives on it. Maybe you just think it's disrespectful, maybe you think Kishimoto's original design for her was better to begin with, and your overall thoughts of the chapter. You think this Tento kid is going to be the Konohamaru to, Boruto's Naruto? And what do you think about that new villain that, he's one of the top of the bingo book? You think he's going to be much, or he'll be a really good challenge for, Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki? And one other thing that I want to address real quick, whenever Mitsuki is about to dive into who he is, we had that backstory chapter, but I still feel like there's a lot of mystique around him, especially the fact that the characters don't really know shit about him. He was about to open up his mouth, and every time he gets interrupted, and I hate that. It's like, ooh, I can't wait to get some more of what he's about, and maybe is he aware of his mission and what's about to happen, and his Orochimaru connection and stuff like that. It's like, I want to dive more into that. So let's get more Mitsuki in there. He's still a mystery, and he's still kind of like just a existing character, and I think that was one of the pitfalls of Sai. Is like, let's not have the Sai situation with Mitsuki. Let's get a really cool fucking character with some really interesting backstory and all that good stuff, which he already got the backstory, but let's dive more into him. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.